The Americano Squared is a fascinating drink that starts tasting one way and then it finishes tasting completely differently. Today I'm going to show you how to make it. Welcome back everyone to the Coffee Cocktail channel. I'm Dan Fellows, and today this is the third video in the three-part series all around the coffee Negroni, which is a delicious drink in a couple of different ways. So the first video we made was the improved coffee Negroni, which was kind of sticking true to that classic Negroni flavor profile. The second was a flat white Negroni, which was completely different, turned it on its head, had clarification with milk and a really silky texture. And then today we're going to make the third drink, which is the Americano Squared. So if these recipes are your kind of thing, make sure you follow along on Instagram, which I'll link in my description, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more recipes like these. So the Americano Squared. What exactly is an Americano? Well, it's two drinks, as you know. So the first we spoke about in the first episode of the series around the improved coffee Negroni, with the Americano Cocktail being a precursor to the Negroni. And it's simply made with Campari, sweet vermouth, and then topped up with soda. The other drink which you might be thinking about is an Americano, the coffee drink, which obviously is espresso on top of hot water. Some people add milk, some people don't. But what we're going to do today is bring the two things together to make the Americano Squared. So before I start making this, I need to shout out my friend Lucas from Strongman's Tipple, who, as well as making incredible ready-to-drink cocktails, made a drink called an Americano Americano, which is a very different drink, but it got me thinking about how I could make this drink today. And this seems like a really good excuse to bring two delicious drinks together to create something that really develops from the first sip to the last, and you don't have two sips the same. Those two drinks both happen to be called an Americano. So the first thing we're going to do is make a black Americano. For this, we need to add 100 grams of hot water to our cup. And by weighing our water, we just know that we're in control of the strength of the coffee flavor in the drink, as well as the dilution of the drink. Next up, I'm going to add an espresso to this, which is made with 19 grams of ground coffee, making a 38 gram espresso. So if you're making this at home, you could obviously use filter coffee brewed very strong or capsules, but you'd lose some of the kind of intensity that the espresso brings, and obviously it wouldn't have the incredible name of the Americano Squared. So this particular coffee that I've chosen to make for you today comes from my friends at Blossom Coffee Roasters in Manchester. It's from the village of Babisa in Ethiopia's Guji zone, and this coffee works perfectly well in the Americano Squared because it's full of bright and sweet sort of red and yellow fruit notes that complement the complex and bittersweet notes of the Campari and sweet vermouth. And also because it's really clean and vibrant and sort of intense and zingy, it brings a real freshness to the drink, which complements the sparkling texture, which I'm going to introduce to you later. So now we've got our Americano here. We now need to get that into here and into the freezer. But there's a step in between that I really strongly recommend, which makes such a big difference to the drink. So in order to get that in there, we're going to pass it through a paper filter. And this is a really important step because if you don't do this, you get a really uneven layer of kind of intensity and darkness through the ice cubes. You get like a weird layer of espresso crema foam on top of the drink, which kind of comes through a bit funky. So by passing it through a paper filter, we're able to remove the crema and get a really nice, even, consistent ice. So now I've got to pop this in here. 3, 2, 1, hoi! Oh, I spill that every time. And then once that's strained through the paper filter, I'm going to pop it in the ice cube tray. So I've actually been a fan of making these drinks that change as they develop over time for quite a long time. Actually 10 years, strangely enough. So I did this in my first ever barista competition, but I kind of did it upside down. So that was an espresso old fashioned I made, which was quite intense on the coffee flavor. And then this was made with cherry ice. So when I allowed the cherry ice to melt, obviously the cherry flavor came through, the coffee intensity dropped down, and this is kind of the opposite of that. So with this drink, we're going to increase that coffee flavor as our Americano ice melts. So that's all gone through the paper filter now, just about. I'm going to pop this over here. And then you want to freeze this into your cubes. So carefully pour it in. And then we're going to use this later to combine with our Americano cocktail. So this now wants to go in the freezer. Make as many or as few as you like. And then we'll come back and make the Americano. So while the Americano ice cubes freeze over in the freezer, I'm going to start making the Americano Cocktail, which is a really delicious, refreshing drink. But one thing we're going to do today is make it super intensely fizzy. So one simple way you could do this would be to add 30 mils of Campari, 30 mils of sweet vermouth, and top it up with soda over our Americano ice cubes. But we're going to do something a little bit different today to really pump up that fizziness. So I'm going to go to the fridge and get these things out. We've got very cold sparkling water or soda, very cold Campari, very cold Cocchi Storico di Torino sweet vermouth, and also our secret weapon, an Espuma ISI gun. So the reason for all these being cold is I want to make sure everything is really at a low temperature, and we're going to charge it with CO2. So if I'd made the drink the first way, 30 mils of Campari and sweet vermouth topped up with soda, it would have been perfectly fine. It would have been a really nice drink poured over our Americano ice cubes. But in that, you've only got a little bit of sparkling liquid. So obviously the Campari and the Cocchi Storico wouldn't be fizzy. But what we're going to do today is we're going to add it to our Espuma gun, nice and cold, and we're going to actually add CO2 to all of the ingredients. So we get a super fizzy drink, which is what we want. Because when those ice cubes melt, it will stay fizzy. So easy to make. We're going to go 100 mils of each. So 100 mils of Campari. If this is too bitter, you can go for Aperol and it becomes similar to an Aperol Spritz. And if you wanted to add gin, go for it. Why not? So 100 mils of that, 100 mils of sweet vermouth. I'm going for Cocchi Storico because it's got loads of body, it's got loads of intensity that stands up to that natural Ethiopian coffee we've got, which itself has lots of sweetness and intensity. And then 100 mils of sparkling water or soda water. So you can do this with still water and then charge it, but because we want maximum fizz, we're starting with a fizzy ingredient to give ourselves even more chance to get it super duper fizzy. And then, as I've done with all of my Negronis so far, I've added 1 to 5 saline solution at 1 part saline to 100 parts liquid. So there's 300 mils in here. We're going to add 3 grams of saline. And this will again kind of take off the edge from that bitterness. Again, it won't taste like salt, but it just brings so much to the drink. Kind of rounds everything out, gives us lots of harmony in the glass. So 3 grams of that. And then this is where the magic happens. So making sure everything's nice and cold gives the CO2 lots of chance to dissolve into the liquid. You want to add a lid. You could also use like a soda siphon for this as well, or a soda stream. And we're going to charge with CO2 cartridges. So you could use 1, which would be fizzy, or you can use 2. So the process, going to add our soda cartridge into here, the receptacle, whatever you want to call it. Going to charge it, making sure everything's on properly. And then you just want to give it a little swirl around, make sure everything gets nice and mixed together, gets to know each other. I'd normally leave this for about 10 minutes to make sure all of the CO2 really gets to know the liquid inside. Going to remove the cartridge. And then after 10 minutes, add in a second, but don't tell anyone, we're going to do it now. And I think this actually exceeds the pressure of the recommendations, but by leaving it for those 10 minutes, then putting it in the fridge, which we'll do for about an hour. I've personally never had a problem, but follow the rules. So now that's all kind of mixed together, that's carbonated in there. I'm going to pop this in the fridge, and then I'll come back in just 1 minute. And we're back. So this has been in the fridge for just about an hour. What I'm going to do is release the gas from it carefully into a cloth, because you do get a little bit of sprayage. And this will be super fizzy now. So once you've released all that gas, which takes a minute, we're just gonna unscrew the lid very carefully once again, and you'll be left with our sparkling Americano cocktail. So we're gonna go and get our Americano ice in a nice frozen glass, and our good friends, the Americano, can meet the Americano. So I've preloaded this with our Americano ice in a nice frozen glass, and we're just gonna pour it over the top. It's a very simple drink, but just a few processes go into it. You can see how fizzy that is. This is such a banger. And you wouldn't believe that something inspired by a silly name could be so tasty. So, it's gonna top that up. And we'll go for a little orange twist garnish, just to give a little bit of acidity and vibrancy to the aroma. Just gonna cut a little citrus coin. Pop that over the top. And you can see to begin with, very much an Americano. Super fizzy one. It's pretty intense as well. Really tasty though. And I want that intensity to get that real nice kind of Campari, Vermouth flavour coming through. And then as the drink mellows and develops, it's going to start tasting like coffee. So I'm going to continue sipping this. At the moment, it's kind of like almost Negroni-like. Doesn't have the gin, but it has the soda taken a bit further. Has the nice citrus aroma. Starting to get a little bit of coffee come through. But the nice thing is, by charging it in the CO2 gun, super fizzy. So give it a go at home, getting some coffee in there now as well. And then this is the Americano Squared. Let me know how you get on in the comments. Make sure you like, share and subscribe. I really want to hear your thoughts on this drink. I want to hear how you get on, whether you prefer it at the beginning or the end. And there we have the Coffee Negroni 3-Ways series. So I look forward to seeing you next week, and thanks very much for watching. This now tastes like coffee. It's like a sparkling black Americano, loads of complexity, loads of kind of vibrancy coming from the natural processed coffee, and it's kind of light roast. And it's a very, I think, very delicious drink. So give it a go for yourselves, and I'll see you next week.